still hanging around, but it's beginning to introduce some drier air. You can see that here. So what you're looking at is a representation of the water vapor, the amount of moisture in the atmosphere that we have to work with here. The greens and the whites, that's a lot of moisture, but all of this orange that you see here wrapping around this counterclockwise circulation of the low pressure, that is dry air. So eventually you're going to get this dry slot to feed in, and it's going to bring you a break in some of that precipitation from what we've been seeing. But generally, we're looking at some rain to continue around this specific center of low pressure. So where you're seeing those showers and storms, it's going to add up, especially over, say, portions of central middle Mississippi there, because that center of low is kind of center of low pressure is kind of swirling around. Seems like maybe my clicker isn't working that well. I'm not sure what's going on here. Thanks, Jill. But where we do have that rain and storm action, that possibility for some flash flooding from Mobile up through Montgomery, Albany over to Savannah, and then all up and down the east coast of Florida. Now here's the radar truth of that center of low pressure, and Jordan kind of just alluded to it. There's basically kind of like waves of moisture boundaries that are going to continue, well, we'll clear that one out, that are going to continue lifting off to the north and east. So that is going to bring us waves of rain, but especially where you have that circulation of moisture around the center of the low, that's where you're going to see some of those totals add up a bit more and maybe run into some flooding issues. So heavy rain possible at times, but not just the rain, that possibility for some storms as we get that daytime heating during the afternoon. You're going to see that possibility for some of these storms to be a little bit more robust, the damaging wind gusts, that possibility for an isolated tornado, and maybe a bit of hail in these areas that are highlighted. So you can see the danger areas for today with the severe thunderstorms across portions of the south and down through east coast of Florida. Our Torcon 2s and 3s, which means there is that isolated risk for a tornado, especially across southern portions of Georgia. Steph?
Well, it's a very broad area, this low pressure, and there's a lot of moisture that's getting slung around it. And so we are going to feel this all the way up to basically the I-20 corridor. Let's time it out for you. The first coast seeing a little bit of rain this morning, just a few showers for us. And as we go through the day, you see everything's getting pulled northbound because our low pressure is over here. And so there is that counterclockwise flow around it. So you're going to see everything on the east side of it get pulled northbound. And that's what we're seeing. And some of these storms are going to be heavy. You could have heavier downpours here along the I-95 corridor. And of course, that could lead to flooding. How about as we look in and around, this is southern Georgia. That's LaGrange. As we go into Alabama, there's Montgomery for you. We've had some rain come through this morning, so the streets will be wet. So be careful with that as you are heading out to work and or school. And again, you know where the low is by how the flow is going. So our low pressure, it's off to our west, counterclockwise flow. So here we're getting kind of that southeast flow coming in and heading towards that low pressure. We need something to move it. We do have a mechanism that will come into play as we head into really kind of our Friday. As we look northbound into Atlanta, just some clouds, maybe a stray shower out there, kind of light on your windshield. Not sure if you need the windshield wipers, but there's your rain coming in as we head around that lunchtime hour. And again, that southeast flow, everything getting pulled in to that center of low.
A little ridiculous. You're probably like, we'd just like somewhere nice in the middle, but we're going to swing from one side to another. Milwaukee right now sitting at 59 degrees. You're headed to the lower 80s today, so you are well above average there. And we are looking at a red flag warning as well. So it's not only going to be hot, but it's going to be hot and dry and windy. But big changes are coming. We've got to watch our next weather maker that's going to be making its way across the country. So you see our trough that's going to eventually push its way eastward. Right now it's pumping moisture across the Rockies. We've got winter weather advisories across portions of Idaho up into Montana. You've got that snow coming down as well. And all of this is eventually going to make its way eastward, including the snow, where we can get enough cold air to mix in. So here's what it's looking like for our Saturday. That cold front pushing eastward, moisture pulled northward well in front of it, and where we get some of that cold air to wrap around, you get a little bit of a chance for some snowfall by this weekend. So if you're hating the extra warmth right now, well, you're going to have some changes coming. Now, the model's not in great agreement what they want to do with the snow. The European model has light snow for the most part, not a ton as you look toward the Great Lakes region, a little bit more there across portions of Colorado. Now, the American model is putting a little bit more looking toward places like Minnesota and Iowa and then a little bit more dispersed out through the Rockies and across, say, Nebraska. Quick look at this filling in. You'll see this fill in across the Great Lakes region as we head through the weekend. So a break from the heat coming in the form of rain and much cooler air, Steph.
Let's have a look at, we're not even in the rainy season yet. The rainy season is a month away, and then don't forget hurricane season starts on June 1st. But in Florida, it's a case of the have and the have-nots. We have seen South Florida getting absolutely drenched with rain, while the rest of Florida is actually still pretty dry. Look at Miami, our 3-day total, 7.38 inches. For the entire month of April, and by the way, we're only a couple weeks in, not even, 3.36 inches. Showers today into tomorrow. We still have that threat for flooding. And then Saturday, the sun will be back. Yay. Over the last 7 days, look at this bullseye. Anywhere from, let's say, Boca all the way down into Homestead, Aventura, Miami Beach, all these areas. While the rest of Florida, we've gotten a little bit of rain, but that sticks out almost literally like a sore thumb, doesn't it here? As if like you hit your thumb and it's just pulsating there into South Florida. The rest of the state is pretty dry. Naples has an extreme drought there. Otherwise, it's severe through a huge chunk of the state. And we are down anywhere from 3 to even 7 inches. And then again, there's Miami, the Miami-Fort Lauderdale-Boca area. We have been well above average. Listen, West Palm to Miami is not a very far drive. You could go out to dinner and drive home. I mean, it is an easy drive. And we see huge differences just in those short distances. It's just been so concentrated over Florida. And if we look at some of the flood factors here into the Tampa Bay area, you have to remember that there's a lot of concrete here and the water just runs off very quickly. We don't have loads of grass where they can, absorb it. And we have the sandy soil in Florida that helps absorb it. But when you get as much as rainfall as we got in Miami, even if it's sandy soil, it can't absorb it fast enough. So no one can handle that much rain in a short amount of time. And we have our rainy season in Florida, as I was mentioning, about a month away until mid-October. We got the sea breeze, that onshore flow. Not to mention, Jordan, we've had some fronts coming through and a super
speeding through sand dunes, but maybe dealing with the possibility of some flooding. So let's talk about it. Subaru, our safe driving partner, where we're going to have especially wet roads across the Gulf Coast, places like Hattiesburg, that 59 corridor. You might find yourself in some heavy rain at times, especially along 20 as you look for places like Jackson, Mississippi. Stretching all across the south, we've got that chance for some rain and storms. Montgomery, you're getting in that as well. And where we're getting the heavy rain, you could get some ponding, so you're going to want to make sure you're slowing down. That 16 corridor, that possibility of some gusty winds, maybe a few storms too from, say, Atlanta to Savannah. Fairly quiet start to your morning across Florida, but as we know, that ground is wet. We actually still have an ongoing flood warning for portions of Broward County because the rain came and then the water has not receded yet. Scattered storms today. Some of them could be strong at times along that 95 corridor, so you'll definitely want to make sure driving with both hands on the wheel, windshield wipers working overtime, and that possibility for some strong storms with flooding does remain. So, Jordan, that flooding was such a problem yesterday.
I know. And